Hello YouTube atheist community, this is just a rebuttal against the claim that atheists are closed-minded or less open-minded than theists. So, it's important to remember or note that the only requirement to be an atheist is to lack a belief in any gods. It is also my understanding that one can only believe in something if they are somehow convinced by the case presented in favour of it. You can't just believe or disbelieve something because you want to. Now, agnosticism is not a weaker position than atheism. It's not a middle ground between God and godlessness. It's something completely different. Agnosticism is a philosophical view that the truth value of particular claims is unknown. Agnosticism refers to knowledge, whereas theism and atheism refer to belief. I'm a scientist, or a studying scientist, and I don't believe in absolutes. I don't know whether or not there's a God because there's no way to disprove its existence. However, the evidence required to prove its existence has never been presented. Thus, I'm not convinced in the slightest that such an entity exists. So, my stance is something along the lines of there's probably no God, or I'm almost certain there's no God. You could even claim that using useful knowledge, I could say there is no God, but it wouldn't be absolute knowledge. Okay? So, I define myself as an agnostic atheist. Being an agnostic atheist, do I think people who believe in God are stupid? No, but I do think that anyone who claims an absolute without sufficient evidence is almost certainly being dishonest. I also think that people who believe something without any evidence are also they're kidding themselves, really. So, how does this link in with closed-mindedness? Well, you claim that they claim that because I believe in only a natural world with natural explanations, and they believe in supernatural explanations as well. They claim that they are more open-minded than me and all of the atheists. So, do you need to believe that something exists to be open-minded about the possibility of its existence? Of course you don't. That's ridiculous. But they often say this. I don't know whether or not there's a supernatural deity who not only created us but intervenes in our everyday lives, and I'm not convinced. Why? Because I don't see any necessity for supernatural explanations, because we have good natural explanations for the majority of important questions. Also, supernatural explanations require even more explaining. Where did the supernatural entity come from? There is an absence of evidence, or a wealth of contradictory evidence, to support claims like the world is 6,000 years old, or all species were made as they are, or prayer works. So, I don't see supernatural explanations as valid hypotheses. However, if I stated what evidence was required, and that evidence was presented to me, I would probably be convinced that there's something to this supernatural explanation after all. If I were to say, no, I'm not buying it, there's no such thing as God, end the story, after the evidence was presented to me, they would call me closed-minded to the heart's content. Just because I don't accept something as true doesn't mean I'm closed-minded to the possibility that it is true. Finally, it's important to note that as well as accepting the possibility of something being true, it is also required that they are willing to accept the possibility of something being false in order to be open-minded about it. So, here's the killer question for these fundies. Are they willing to accept that God might not exist, and that his existence might not actually be necessary after all? If the answer is yes, then good for them. They understand that it's not necessary for him to exist, but somehow they're being convinced that he is. Okay, fair enough. We're not going to debate that just yet. But on the case of open-mindedness, that's fair enough. And I'm presuming that they'll also be convinced that this is the Judeo-Christian God, or at least the people who may reply to this video will think that. But if they answered no, then fair enough, actually. That's not actually what I'm bothered about, although I do think it's a little bit idiotic. What I'm bothered about is whether or not that puts them in the right position to be calling us close-minded. Okay, so that's the argument that I would put to somebody who was claiming that I'm closed-minded. Thank you.